I'm going to show you 3 more pieces of equipment which are designed to give the child practice in judging size, drawing his attention to size, so that he will eventually be able to form an abstract conception of size, and then he will become aware, intelligently aware, of that quality in the environment. Because unless you have your attention drawn to the qualities of the environment, you can often go through life without seeing anything that is there. You see? So this leads on to this intelligent observation. The piece I have here is known as the Pink Tower, and it consists of 10 cubes. And the largest cube is 10 centimeters cube, 10 by 10 by 10. And the next smaller is 9 centimeters cube, then 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 centimeter cube. So the difference between any 2 in succession is 1 centimeter in height, length, width. They're rather large, and so we use them on the mat on the floor, because the child is going to build a tower with them, and the tower would be too tall on the table. He wouldn't be able to reach the top of it. And when we work on the floor, we give them a dark green mat to work on as a sort of work area. They understand better, even if it's a carpeted room, they somehow like their work confined within an area. And it does also mean that nobody else comes walking across that area. That's important as well. Now they're going to judge size by sight and also by touch. I think I've already said to you that they learn so much through their hands, and this sense of touch means a great deal to them. And so we show them to hold the cubes, to grasp a cube with their fingers on all sides when they're going to put it into place, and all 4 sides. Now, you would find that in doing that, you would know very easily by the stretch of your fingers which was the largest, as well as by sight. The child probably is unlikely to be able to stretch his fingers round the largest one, because his hands are much smaller than yours, but they can stretch all the others. Now you start by having the cubes scattered over a mat, dark green mat, and you and the child are at the mat, and you begin to show what is done. So you pick up the largest cube and you place it in position, and you let the child definitely see that you're choosing. And you choose the next in size, and with one movement you place it exactly in the center of the first one. Get it concentric in one movement. Don't fiddle with it afterwards, because if you start adjusting and doing little things, the child thinks that that is part of the exercise, and you'll find all your children do this fiddle without really knowing what they're doing. So you have to practice this until you can do it well. Now that is what the exercise is, to take each cube in turn, grasping on all sides and placing it concentrically in the middle of the one before. Pausing and definitely choosing the next. And in that way you build a tower. It's a bit tall on the table for anyone. It's much easier to do it on the floor. See, and then you look at it with the child so that he can see what it should be like, and then it's taken down one cube at a time. Mixed on the mat. And then the child would probably like to try. As soon as he begins working with it, and if he obviously understands what he should be doing with it, then you can leave him to practice. If you've given it at the right time, he won't be perfect at first. He will make mistakes. He can usually see his mistakes. He probably gets them a bit crooked too. But when he's finished, it doesn't look right to him, and he usually takes it down and tries again. We had a little African boy in our school last year, and we got a lovely series of pictures of his first lesson, the teacher showing him how to build it. And then when he had built it himself with a number of mistakes, he kept looking at it, and you could see it wasn't quite right, and he kept crawling around the mat and looking at it from all angles. And then he tried it again. He must have tried it 3 or 4 times, but each time he crawled round the mat, really looking at it. And at last he went over to the teacher and made her come and give him another lesson. So it was a very nice series of shots. I must say he worked with it for about an hour. He didn't succeed in doing a perfect tower, but very nearly. Well, once the child knows what to do, then he can help himself to this material from the shelf. It's always kept in the same place, and he can use it for as long as he likes. When he puts it away, I always have it in a cluster on the shelf, just neatly there. I don't ever keep it on the shelf built into a tower. For one thing, I find that before they put it away, they have exhausted their cycle of activity. And if in putting it away they have to build a tower, which is a very difficult exercise for them, you see it's too much, because they work up to the last minute on the mat. And again, I find if you keep it built as a tower, the vibrations of the room, the smallest one is apt to get shaken off, and it falls on the floor, and then I think it gets swept up very often by the janitor. But people seem to lose that little one so often. It shouldn't get lost. If at the end of the morning you give a glance at your pink tower, if the little one's missing, you ask the children to find it, and it's found before they go home, like the smallest cylinder. Children at home are used to putting their possessions in their pockets, and they do develop a great affection for the tiny pink tower and the very smallest cylinder. So very often it turns up in somebody's pocket. And then you just say, thank you for finding it, and put it where it should be. So you do have to keep, at first, an eye on those two things. But I think keeping it in a cluster instead of built into a tower is a better idea for those two reasons.
How does the child then transport this whole thing from the shelf to where he's going to work?
Well, usually he takes 1 or 2, you know. Anyway,
so that would not be underneath, it would be off on the side or whatever, right?
well, the pink tower's on the mat. He has to take the tower off before he can fold up the mat and put the mat away. Well, I prefer to have my mats hanging, because then they don't get creased.
If, like with the cylinders, he doesn't pick the blocks up right, or doesn't do something right, then you wait for the next lesson?
Yes, you give him a new lesson when you wouldn't interrupt him when he was really concentrating. So, I think the rule is never to interrupt concentration. You would only interrupt him if he was building an aeroplane or going in fantasy play.
Do you ever find that a child, will they just leave them on the mat and go away if they can't do it?
Oh, it depends very much on the child. If you have a child who is used to putting things away, you see, and you do encourage them always to put things away when they're finished with it, then he would put it away, you see. But in the beginning, before they understand order, they've come from an untidy home, then they are very much apt to get up and walk away and leave it, even if they've been working with it for an hour. And then you, oh, I would say, would you like to put it away? Do you know where it goes? Would you like me to help you put it away? You know, anything you like. And if they say, no, I won't, then I would say, well, I'll put it away for you today. Perhaps you would help me tomorrow. You know, so that you lead them into this order, you know.
I was going to ask you, the children are fantasizing with the blocks. What do you do then?
If they're what?
Fantasizing, like taking out
Oh,
airplanes or something.
well, I do just tell them that's not what we do with them. Show them again how to build the tower.
What age do you introduce these at about?
All the work I'm giving you is 2.5 onwards. So if there's any difference in age, I'll always tell you. Now, a second exercise which we can do when the child is building the tower very easily is to build it, and here you have to take 2 hands, and you build it with 2 sides absolutely flush, one corner on the other corner. And then you see you get a tower with a little centimetre wide ledge on 2 sides. And it interests the children to see, you see that really that the difference in size is at 1 centimetre, and that you can push the little cube all the way around on that ledge. And they like to put it on each one. Doing it all the way up the tower and possibly all the way back again. It just demonstrates that the difference between any 2 in succession is that 1 centimetre. That comes after they can really build the tower easily. Now the tower, if you have it painted, must be a very pale pink. If it is a strong pink, then really you can't see size because the colour is so dominant. So it must be a very pale pink, or it needn't be coloured at all. I really find the children like one which is made in what they call pink wood. It isn't pink, but it's very nice wood, and it's just very lightly varnished, but it's a natural wood colour. Examples to show you. You can see terrible pink. See a pink like that, all you would be aware of really is the colour, and you wouldn't see size, I don't think. And a very, very high gloss paint does chip more than another. Here's one in plain wood. It has been a little bit too heavily varnished, but before that was varnished it was a lighter wood, and I think I find my children are very fond of it. So So in plain wood would be better than a bit over strong pink. That's not that's a colour you don't really, doesn't really hit you. It's a nice delicate colour. Manufacturers do tend to think that children have to have everything in violent colours. And so you do have to keep an eye on them, not let them do that. Well, the pink tile differs in 3 dimensions, and the next piece of material in this series is called the broad stair or the brown stair, and you get these prisms, and they differ in 2 dimensions. They differ in height and width by 1 centimeter between any 2 in succession. They're all the same length. And again, these will be mixed on a mat on the floor. The largest one is 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters, you see. And the length, I think, is 20 centimeters, but that isn't really important. It's important that it's 10 centimeters wide, 10 centimeters high. You see, so at the end is a square of 10 centimeters. And the next one is 9 centimeters by 9 centimeters high and wide and 20 centimeters long. So each one, and they decrease by 1 centimeter in width and 1 centimeter in height between any 2 in succession. So you get to the smallest, you see, which is 1 centimeter wide, 1 high. I think is 20 long. So again, it's this exact gradation. Now here is you're going to grasp them this way, because it's like that way that you will feel the difference in the width. And the child can judge by touch as well as by sight. And when you're giving the lesson, you have them again mixed on the mat on the floor, a dark green mat, and you put the first in place, and you look round and you definitely choose the next in size. You grasp it across the thickness, you bring it as close as you can to the first, and then using both hands you put them together, getting the 2 sides even. Take the next one, bring it close as you can, and with both hands move them together, make sure the 2 sides are even. And you continue to arrange them in order of size in that way. And then when the child understands, he can take over, just mix them up again, and he can do it. And he will make mistakes at first. If he was perfect, well then he's already beyond it. You're giving it too late. You see, but he can nearly always see his mistakes. It doesn't look right to him. he looks at it afterwards. Or with some of the educationally subnormal children, they can feel the mistakes if they feel down the stair. And then when he's doing it easily, use it many times, again you can demonstrate the difference. This is 1 centimeter. Because this one will just fit on each step, making this step the same height as this one. And move this up and down the stair. That interests them. Yes?
Does it particularly matter how you present it to the child, whether it's ascending or descending that particular order?
That I don't think would matter, but I think on the whole it's easier to see the largest. I don't think it would matter.
When you're demonstrating, do you verbally say things that you do it, like tell the child to try and make the size?
No, I think I said to you last week that you don't verbalize during a lesson if you can possibly help it. The child doesn't follow language very easily, and he concentrates on what you're doing. If he has to concentrate on what you're saying, he doesn't notice what you're doing. And it's very hard for them to learn through the medium of words at this age. So once you've made a relationship with your child, here you can really start talking.
Do you allow them to build a tower with you?
No, definitely not. I have seen them doing that, but it goes up to a height like this. After all, it's 6 times 20.
What if they did it on the side? It would be the same, wouldn't it? It would be the same size as the big tower.
But I'm talking about building it into a stair this way. If they did that, it's 620s, 120. You see, it would be very high, taller than me, and they are very heavy blocks. If anyone gave them a knock, it would cut somebody's head open. So I consider that would be really dangerous to do. And I think children, if you show them the right way to do it, I think they're better going the right way. They have got square ends. The end is 10 centimeters square, 9 centimeters square, 8 centimeters square. And you do sometimes get these intelligent children who do see a relationship between these and the pink tower. I never show them. If they discover it for themselves, then that's fine. If one child discovers it, they probably all start doing it. But you often have a child who will take out the broad stair and the pink tower together. And I've had them show this in different ways. See. Some children build the prisms, the broad stair, and then they find that they can match. Because this the face of the cube is 10 centimeters square, it will just fit onto the square of this prism, which is the end is 10 centimeters square. And these each have a face of 9 centimeters square, so they will fit onto the prism that has the end face of 9 centimeters square. Well, this is really intelligent because they would be recognizing identities, wouldn't they? So if a child did this and showed you, you would be very interested and very pleased. But leave it for them to find out. Had them do it that way. I've had lots of children do it this way. the same thing, just showing it in a different form. And so on. I've had one or two who did it this way. Doesn't matter, you're showing the same thing, aren't you? So if they came and showed you what they've done, you know, you'd be very interested. Now again, with your educationally subnormal children, it might be too difficult for them to have all 10 cubes at once. I think some of you are dealing with these children. So for them, you could take every other cube of the pink tower. You see, and you could give them only 5 cubes. Wouldn't matter which 5 you gave. And because the differences then would be twice as great, they would have more chance of being successful with only 5. Wouldn't matter which 5 they had. And when they were successful with 5, then they could have all 10. And the same would be true for the prisons. You have one of those children, and then you could take every other one. And we are more and more thinking that these children should be in a normal class to begin with, if possible, because they make a great effort to come up to the standard of the normal children. And do very much better than if they're just amongst children worse than themselves. So when they're successful with 5, then they can have all 10. But that is only for the education subnormal. Well, now the last piece is called the long rods or the red rods, and these differ only in length. So you'll find that these are by far the most difficult of the 3 pieces, and we always introduce them in that order. The pink tower first has 3 differences, so therefore is the easiest. It's easier to see the difference when there are 3 differences than if there are only 2 differences. So the pink tower first, when they're doing the pink tower well, then they can have the brown stair, or the broad stair. And when they're doing that well, then they can come on to these long rods. And these are either a dull red or else just plain wood. And you have them on the mat, or they're mixed up, but they are all nice and straight. If you have them all which ways, you know, then you get them foreshortened, and it's much harder to see the difference in that. So I arrange them. And the mat should be a wee bit longer than the one I've got here. It should be long enough to take them. Now, the smallest is 10 centimeters in length, and the longest is 1 meter. So the difference between any two in succession is 10 centimeters. All the material is based on the metric system, you see. Now, you are going to choose by sight and by touch, and as it's length that is involved, you let the child see you looking at them, and then you do feel exactly from one end to the other of the longest. You see all the longest ones. And when you feel, you must begin exactly at one end and stop exactly at the other end. You know, it's no good beginning 1 inch from the beginning and going like that, because you're not feeling correctly. And having felt them all, you decide by touch and by sight which is the longest, and you put it up towards the top of the mat. I'm going to do it the right way up for you, as though you were the children. See? Then you proceed to find the next indent. And you've chosen it, bring it close to the first, and you put them together with the left side even. Sometimes they can feel more than once. So with your hand you make sure that the left side is even.
Showing them by putting the longest one at the top of the mat?
Yes, towards the top. Doesn't have to be dead at the top.
Child is beside you, not across from you.
I think the child is always beside you. There's only one lesson in which I would sit opposite. It's a much easier relationship to have the child by you. You know, somehow you make very much better contact, I think. And it also means that you're both of you getting it the right way up. You're not having to do it backwards. I'm on the wrong side, you see, but if I sat over there, you wouldn't be able to see anything. The child and the teacher would be here.
You see that in books sometimes illustrated upside down.
Yes, I know. I'm really upset at some of the pictures in books. There is one book in which it's upside down. There are 1 or 2 faulty illustrations, actually. And the child is here looking at it. And you can see that there's the difference between any two is that equal. Now, this child may have to have more than one lesson. It really is by far the most difficult of the 3 pieces. And he will at first make many more mistakes with it. But you may give him new lessons on different days. He will gradually come to the time when he can do it without mistakes. It's pretty obvious to him when he has made a mistake. He usually takes it to pieces and tries again. You can't teach him to see length. It's only by working with it and practicing it that he becomes able to judge length. And again, when the education is subnormal, they could have every other one. You would leave half on the shelf. You would only take the ones you were going to use. Those would be left on the shelf. And then you see, if we built a stair with every other one, so the difference is twice as great. As you have these children, isn't it? Would they have difficulty with the stair? I expect they would. Yes. So then they would have a better chance using every other one. And when they could do that, it wouldn't matter whether you gave them these or these. When they could do that, then they could have all 10.
Have you ever seen children compare those to the red and blue rods?
If they're in the same room, yes.
They are the same.
They're exactly the same in length, yes. And the reason why we build them even on the left, as we do, is because that is a preparation for the number rods. The number rods have to be built that way, because when we eventually put the numerals to the rods, we then get the numerals from 1 to 10 in sequence, whereas if they were built the other way, you'd get them backwards.
How do you keep the red rods and the rods there on the shelf?
Well, I just let the children put them back in a cluster, as I say. I don't think they should be asked to build them in any exact way. You see, because it means doing that very difficult exercise all over again.
I don't understand what you mean by in the clusters.
Cluster,
Okay.
C-L-U-S-T-E-R. So, we have a certain language problem sometimes, but we also have a different accent, don't we?
Do you know if Dr. Montessori ever experimented with a shorter, starting with a shorter rod for the longest one? I've often wondered if it was difficult for the child because it's such a long length to comprehend visually.
I always saw her demonstrate it beginning with the longest, and there isn't any reason why you shouldn't begin at the shortest and work to the longest. But you would then be sort of reaching beyond this one. I think it's easier to start at the top and work towards you than work the opposite way. But I mean, as long as you're arranging them in order of length, that really I can't see would matter.
I didn't explain my question clearly. What I meant was is if she tried a shorter set totally.
Oh, no. No. She definitely wanted them based on the decimal system, on the metric system.
So she never tried, say, a 5 centimeters?
No. No. Because in all her material, there are other very important factors, you see. And this is giving them a conception of length, but is also leading them towards the understanding of the way we use measurement. And this is definitely a meter, and that's 10 centimeters. See? So it is preparing for mathematics. Just as, you see, this is length. And this longest one would contain 10 of the shortest one. 10 tens are 100, and 100 centimeters in a meter, aren't they? And so, with these, they really represent, as it were, the squares of the numbers. See, this is 10 by 10. This one is the end is 1 centimeter square. This is 2 centimeters square. If you were to cut this one up to ones of this size, how many would you get? 4. You see the square of 2. And if you were to cut this one up to ones of this size, what would you get? 100, the square root of 10, you see. So these mathematical principles are incorporated in the material. Here, these are like the cubes of the numbers, aren't they? This is 10 by 10 by 10. So it would make, how many of the little one? 1,000 of the little one, wouldn't it? This is 2 by 2 by 2, so it would make 8 of the little one. It's 2 cubed, isn't it? And so on. She was always saying that this, handling mathematical material when they were small, they have this power of absorption of whatever there is in the environment, you see. And later, when they came to the math, they would understand it because of these things they had already handled. And it is one of the reasons why most children who go through a Montessori school do not have the trouble with mathematics.
So this is a preliminary for her golden beads that she used, where she put them in squares, beads in squares.
Well, you see, these are the understanding of mathematics, yes. And everything's on the decimal system because I know that we have our rough and ready measurements, like an inch, which was the top of your thumb, foot, which was a man's foot, and a yard, which was a man's stride. And they're very useful for everyday measuring. But for any fine mathematical work, we always had to go to the decimal system.
When the children are, like, say, 11 years old, working in the advanced method, do they return to these pieces of equipment, or do they not?
You could re-show them, yes. I think be a little earlier than that, probably. But they definitely absorb something mathematical which prepares them later to understand that. Whatever is in your early environment, this mind at that stage has the power of absorbing it without necessarily being conscious of it or understanding it. But it does sort of illuminate everything for you later if you have them.
It seems to me that having older children, realizing that and gaining respect for that equipment would be nice to have around younger children who've been using sophisticated equipment.
Oh, yes. And I found that in all my Montessori classrooms, if I was part of a bigger school, I would find the older ones would sometimes come down to the Montessori department. And they would go around the material and say, oh, I use that and I use this. You know, and it had made a big impression on the younger ones. An 8-year-old would build the pink tower. Oh, I remember doing this, you know. And they always look back on it with this real love. I remember going to school one Saturday, and this 10-year-old was standing outside the door. And he'd had a present of his first camera. And the first thing he'd done was to come back to his old nursery school to take a photograph of it. So children do look back with this real affection, you know, in their early years, don't they? So they do. They like to come and revisit.
Is using your green, but specifically green mat, is because of the ease on the eye? Or what?
Yes, everything looks nice on a green mat. It's like the color of the outside world. And the color doesn't hit you. You see, if you use a yellow or a red or a blue mat, you will be aware of the color of the mat. But you are not aware of this dark green. There are some greens that would be off, or lime green, and yet everything shows up well against them. But you're aware of the material, not the mat.
How do you prevent a child from choosing to use the material prior to having it introduced?
Well, you do say to them not to take anything that you haven't shown them how to use. See? And if they're very insistent that they want anything, then you would give them a careful lesson with it, even if you thought they weren't ready for it. And sometimes you may find that you were the one that was mistaken. And usually if it's far beyond them and you let them handle it and look at it, then they're satisfied to leave it until they are ready.
How large is the green mat there?
It should be just say a couple of inches longer than the meter, perhaps another 5 centimeters. I bought some more material and I'm going to cut this afternoon some mats of the right size.
Do you alternate the sides that you place the long sticks? Sometimes you use the left side, sometimes.
No, you always have them even on the left.
Yeah.
That-
Look, you did on the right.
I'm doing it for you to see it the right way. Aren't I doing it on your left? Am I doing it wrong for you? Yes, I do. See, I'm doing it so that you're seeing it the right way up. I'm in the wrong place. I explained to you I'm in the wrong place and I'm seeing it upside down.
So we would put the longest rod farthest from us?
Yes, you would.
I'm doing it right that way.
There's a mistake when one of the books is upside down. There we are now. Move these off. Now, there you are. That's exactly how it should be, but the mat should be a little longer.
I'm curious, why does it have to be the left side? Is that just for consistency?
Well, I said a few minutes ago, it's a preparation for another piece of material with which they learn to count, where the rods are the same length as these, and which after they can count them, you put the numerals 1, 2, 3 along them, you see. And if they were the other way, you would get your numerals going the wrong way, because you want your numerals to read from left to right. So that's the reason. It's just leading on to another piece of equipment.
Does that help a lot of information from the should you always work with the child?
No, you should not. Surely that's utter nonsense. And it would be very serious if you affected the eyes to that extent. If you made them do everything left, right. You see, your eyes have to work in all directions. Imagine having a driver of a car who is geared to go left, right. I think we'd all be crashing into each other. No, don't. That's ridiculous. When it comes to reading, and you say to a child, you show them that you read left, right, I've never known a problem. And after all, it's the greater part of the world reads from right to left. Jewish, the Arabic people, they all read the opposite way to us. And the Japanese, I think, read from top to bottom. And, it's only pure chance the way you ended up. There's no need to do any training towards that. I don't know who started that game. And neither do the poor children have to carry them one at a time like this. I think that puts them against them. Some schools, they make them carry them one at a time like that and put them away one at a time like that. It was unreasonable, because if your cupboard was over there, you've got to go and get your mat and put it down, then you've got to do 10 times there and 10 times back. That's 20 journeys, and when it comes to putting them away, 10 times, another 10 times. That's 40 journeys and 4 journeys for your mat. And I think then the children never want to touch it again. Or they've just got it out, it's time to go home. I mean, it does keep them occupied. So I think they can carry 2 or 3 at a time, I don't Don't take them in huge armfuls because you do chip the edges, but as long as they're carrying them reasonably, leave them alone. Don't let them hit anyone over the head with one, you know, stop that. As long as they're carrying them gently and not spoiling them.
What do the children do until you've introduced them?
Well, we shall have to have a talk on how you start a class. Yes, we will. When you know a little bit more.
Do you see a great difference in aptitude in the normal child for this sort of spatial relationship?
If they have done all these exercises, oh, definitely, yes.
I mean, in the very beginning, are you going to have children who just immediately grasp this, and is there a great difference in the perceiving of what you're teaching here?
The long rods, I find they practically all have difficulty with at first. They do find that difficult. It depends on the age and the previous experience. You see, some have had a quite good home experience, and some haven't. So these things make a difference. I mean, I had one little girl come to school at 2.5 whose father was an artist. But because of that home exposure to colour, she was very, very aware of colour. She could do the colour material beautifully and did love it, whereas a child who hadn't had that exposure would take longer.
It's nice to hear you speak of experience rather than make it sort of hung up on aptitude. This child has this aptitude.
Yes.
Came from somewhere, his genes or something.
Yes, no, these things are not genetic. Some things are genetic, these are not. These do depend on experience and having your attention called to the, drawn to the qualities at a certain time. See, unless we're colorblind, we have all got the ability to see color. See, and then, of course, colorblindness is usually just the red-green factors, the commonest. But all the same, we can go through life almost being unaware of colour if our attention hasn't been drawn to it, if we haven't worked with it as children. And there again, your children come to school, some of them with homes that are very colour conscious. They know more about it, and some whose homes are not colour conscious. So, all right then. So some of you want the lesson plan from me. One of you wanted that little grey book. And then I hope most of you are coming to a lab to practice with it.